All right, there you go.
All right, so hi everyone, also from my side. My name is Florian Grönert, and I'm a senior software engineer located in Germany. And today, as Yash already introduced, I want to talk with you about UI testing in Dynamics 365 customer engagement and portals using the library that I created, which is D365 UI-Test. So, opening slide again. And here's the short agenda for you, just to tell you what we're going to focus on today. So my plan is to give you a rough technological overview at the start. So we'll look at a few slides and check out the techniques behind it. And after that, we'll make a hands-on part where I want to show you how you can really define UI tests, how you can run them, and how you can automate them, just so that you can get some practical experience as well. And in the technological part, we'll start just with a small questionnaire why you should do UI testing. Then we'll take a look at the techniques behind D365 UI test, just so that you know what's behind it. I'll give you a short overview how to install it and how to create UI tests. We'll cover setting up the automation in Azure DevOps, how to debug errors, and then at the very end of the agenda, but not of the talk. I think the hands-on will be the major part of this presentation. We'll deep dive into the system and define tests on our own. So, and if questions arise, I'm usually a fan of making a dialogue and questioning them in between. But as we have quite a few participants and limited time, I'd ask you to write them down or to remember your questions, and then we'll cover them at the end. Okay, so first up, why you should do UI testing. So many customers and organizations that I know don't do UI testing yet. And this is because many people think that it costs so much time to do UI testing and that they will be faster in the long run when they do it manually. I hope to prove them wrong with this session because in my view, it's easier and faster to set up UI testing with a new tool chain in regards to or in opposition to doing your tests manually, because when you do them manually, you have to click every time, you have to remember what you have to do, and there's just the fixed amount of time that you always need for doing your tests. You have to stay at your computer to do it, and you can even forget some steps that you might want to test. So it's not even bulletproof for testing everything that you want to test. And in addition to that, UI testing is really directly in your system. You might have some unit tests already for plugins in Dynamics 365 CE, for example, or something else, which is good. And I encourage you to do so. But the next step up would be to directly test inside the system for getting really reliable results, because your plugin, for example, might work in isolation. But if you put together a whole system and more components act together, it might be that there are integration errors with your plugins, for example. And when testing directly in the system, you can catch these errors as well. And my favorite point sometimes is that you can't miss testing of your security rules. So we often have cases where we set up our business logic, we test it, everything seems fine. And once we roll it out, users report that they get errors. And sometimes it's related to the security rules. So the business processes which we designed are not allowed to do what they need to do because the user is lacking security permissions. And when you set up your UI tests to run with a user which has a normal user role and not a system administrator role, then you can cover this automatically. And when you design a component and forgot to extend the security rule that your users usually use, then you see directly in the UI tests that they failed because permissions were not appropriate. So this is also a nice way of automating testing of your security setup. And as to the learnings in this presentation, I hope that I will be able to show you how you can benefit from UI testing and when it should be applicable, which tools you can help to design UI tests, and how to set them up. All right, so the target group for this presentation is going to be technical consultants and developers. So there will be a few parts where understanding of code and developing code will be beneficial, but I think you can grasp the root as well when you're a technical consultant, especially because I'm going to show you a browser extension, which I especially wrote for being able to define UI tests without having to write code. So this slide is going to present you just 3 key takeaways why I think UI testing is important to you, which is you save time. As I said, you don't have to sit in front of the computer and click yourself, and you can't forget anything. It's easy to get started with the toolchain, which I'm going to present to you. And I often hear the argument that you can't really do UI testing or testing in general after you started the project because it's so much to test. And I think that's not really true, because no one forces you to really cover your whole system at once. I think when you are in the middle of the project, or maybe even at the end of the project, and you want to start with UI testing, I think you can still do it. You can just do it step by step, cover the processes that are most important to your organization first, and then you can grow your test base after your project is done, or maybe also in the middle. But you don't have to do it right from the start. Although when doing new projects, I would encourage you to really do it from the start, so that your tests can cover or can grow with your processes, so that you can also reduce your testing time in the project as well. Right, so regarding the technical facts, D365 UI-Test is mainly built on Microsoft technologies. So we have Playwright, which acts as browser automation framework. It's really the latest framework provided by Microsoft, and I have grown to like it a lot because it's stable, it's fast, and the setup is really easy, because with other approaches you have to make sure that you have the correct driver version and the correct matching version of your browser, and sometimes it's difficult, or not, you don't get it right right ahead. And with Playwright, you can just say install it, and it will take care of the dependencies automatically. So it will download the matching versions of Firefox, Chrome, and WebKit all on its own, and then it's ready to go. It's really nice. And it runs on Linux, Windows, and Mac. So you're really cross-platform ready, and you can use it where you want. Yeah, so the language which I used, and which you should probably use when writing your own test as well, is TypeScript. It's just a step up on JavaScript. So it's mainly JavaScript with types and with the latest features. It's really nice to use, and it gives you a nice IntelliSense for handling your code. So it's just easier to get started with the framework that you don't know yet. And one thing that I saw is that UI testing is really getting quite some attention now, and there are many frameworks for doing it. So of course you can use Playwright without anything on top, or you can use the new upcoming frameworks such as QA Wolf or Tycho, which I tried as well, and they work. But I think Dynamics 365 is really so complicated and so dynamic in what it shows to you that it makes really sense to use a framework which focuses on Dynamics 365, because of course you can write UI tests which navigate to your organizations pages and which fill out the forms, but there's also always something dynamic hidden in Dynamics. So when you create a record, for example, it might or it might not show you a duplicate detection dialog which you have to click away. And I think these dynamic parts of the user interface, which you don't know whether they will appear or not, might be difficult to handle in those rather static UI tests that you can define with other tools. And those are things that D365 UI-Test takes care for you automatically. So you don't have to really think of all what's going on behind the scenes, really. And of course, it's based on Playwright and it uses it internally, but it does not mean that you are not allowed to use Playwright yourself. So when you instantiate D365 UI-Test, you will receive the browser context, and the page, which are really the core objects with which you can interact with Playwright, and you can do everything on your own as well. So you do not lose any functionality provided by Playwright at all by using that D365 UI-Test. Yeah, and what D365 UI-Test mainly provides you with is just robust and ready-to-use functions for interacting with Dynamics 365. So you get tested and pre-wrote functions for logging into your organization, maybe also if you need it for handling multi-factor authentication. There's a full API for getting and setting values inside forms, for asserting field visibilities, required levels, and clicking ribbon buttons. And an agenda that we are using for developing D365 UI-Test is to make our tests robust and to make them as simple as possible. And you can mainly see this because we are trying to use the JS client API as much as possible, because it's just a robust and accessible API for controlling the form. So many UI test frameworks rely solely on typing into the input fields, but for Dynamics 365, I think there are just a lot of cases where it's beneficial to use the API, so the JavaScript API for setting values. For example, when you are going to fill out a lookup, in 90% of the cases, you don't care that someone has to click into the lookup and to enter something. In most cases, you just want the record that you want to have referenced inside your data to be set in there. And then you don't want to say, okay, I want to fill out the country lookup. I search for Germany, I press enter. How do I handle it if there are multiple countries available? You just want Germany to be the country, and then you want to move on. And this is what we cover until now. So we set values through the JavaScript API, and I show you later on how setting a lookup looks. And I think it's going to be really intuitive and assisted in addition to that with the browser extension that I created. And the browser extension is also what we're going to look up next. So as you can see in here, it's in the Chrome Web Store, and it's as well on the MS Edge Web Store. It's an official browser extension that I created for assisting you in creating D365 UI tests. So it's just a small extension to your browser, which you can install. You can navigate to your organization, and then it will assist you with its UI to define UI tests and to even record them. So it has a macro-like feature where you can just say, watch what I do on this CRM page and record it to a test, and it will record every value that you set to the test that you selected, and you can just record tests on your own instead of having to define them. And when you're done with your tests, you can export it as code. So you will get a completely working TypeScript representation of the test suite that you generated. And in addition to that, you get a JSON definition of the test that you designed, which you can use for importing to different browsers. So for example, when you want to define UI tests with many users and you want to share the suite, you can just send them the JSON, they can import it at their side, and they can work on the same suite as you did for extending it or for changing stuff. So the links are in the presentation. I think there might be a way of distributing it. If we don't have an official one, I will upload it to some repository, but everything is hosted on GitHub, and everything that I do regarding open source development in Dynamics 365 can be found in XRM-OSS. So this is the official repository where I host everything, and the UI test extension can be found in here. Inside the repository, you mainly have links to the various browser stores, so that you can find it quicker. Of course, you can also go to the Chrome Web Store directly, search for D365 UI-Test Designer, and then you will find it as well. Just one important thing is that when you install the designer and you want to start right ahead, then you have to take care to reload the tab where you have opened your Dynamics organization. This is because when you install the extension, it will not directly check if you have any Dynamics tab open, and it will not inject its action listeners for handling what you do in the extension. So just reload after installing the first time, and then you're good to go. All right, so this is the part for the browser extension, but for being to execute the tests that you designed, you need something on your client as well. And this is as first point the core dependency which we have, which is Node.js. This is just a framework for being able to execute JavaScript on your client, and also for being able to gather all the dependencies that we need. And you can just download the version for your operating system in the link inside this slide. And I would suggest you to use the LTS version because it's just more stable usually. All right, so what we have is we have a demo repository inside GitHub. It's everything set up. You just have to define your user credentials, and then this test is already fully functional. So it will log you into your Dynamics organization and open an account form, and then the test is basically done. But this test repository is just for you to ease getting started and to just have a boilerplate where everything is set up, and you just need to paste the test that you designed with the extension or which you wrote manually. It's just a helpful project for getting you started. And there's also a nice project by Paul Broiler from Microsoft where he did not use Jest, but he used Mocha instead. So if you already have some knowledge of JavaScript testing frameworks and you want to use Mocha over Jest, you can also check out his repository. It's referenced in the official D365 UI-Test repository as well. So when you go to the test repository, you have the possibility to either clone the repository with Git, or if you don't have Git or don't want to use it, you can also download the zip file, which you have to extract, and then you have the full repository as well. No matter which approach you choose, after getting the code, you have to initialize the project. So to install the matching Playwright Chrome version, and to gather additional packages that I need to execute everything. And for doing that, you can open the PowerShell in the project directory and run npm CI, which will restore the packages. In the near future, I might also add some PowerShell scripts, which you just need to double click for getting everything set up. I think it's not a big task, but at many organizations, execution of arbitrary PowerShell scripts is prevented because it could, of course, do malicious code if you get it from an untrusted site, so your IT does not know if the PowerShell script is secure or not. So many times it's blocked, and opening the PowerShell yourself and running npm CI is always safe to do. Yeah, and once you're done with importing the code from your extension or writing it by hand, you can just type npm test inside your PowerShell, inside the project directory, and the tests will be run. So Chrome, or if you choose to do so, another browser will start and execute your tests. And here's just again a short comparison between writing tests with the extension or designing or writing them with the code. So on the left side, we have the Chrome extension. This is the pop-up that you will see when you install it and click on its icon. And it mainly has some navigation at the top. So in here you have the capture view, which you can use for defining tests. You have an import-export view where you can export the generated TypeScript or import a JSON definition, which you got sent by someone. Utility will be used for some global test settings, but there's nothing inside there right now. And here at the top is also a button for add test group. Add test groups are those tabs below in here. It's just for being able to group your tests so that you can really separate them and get a better overview. You don't have such long list then, but they will be executed in order. So account tests, for example, would be run as first inside here. You have a clear button for resetting every state just to start fresh. And the button in here is for creating the recording. So when you click on the drop down at the right, you will be able to select a test and to record into this test. If you want to stop recording, you can just click on the left side of the button and it will remove all the action listeners. Test groups have a name. They can be moved in their position, and they can be deleted, of course. And every test group can contain tests, which are in here. You can click the plus button in here for being able to add a test, and a test can contain a name. It can contain a description, for example, a reference to a Jira ticket or something like that, and it can have an initialization action. So we will take a look in depth at this when we do our hands-on. Should suffice for now. And of course, when you're using code, you have everything at your hands and you have to take care of everything yourself. So what you can see in here is just a simple jest test, which has the name priority middle. The whole function is inside another function, which is take screenshot on failure. The Chrome extension does it itself, but when writing the code, you have to make that yourself. And this just ensures that if your test fails, a screenshot will be made of the current page state so that you can see afterwards what was really the issue, how did the page look when the test failed. And then this test in here just opens the create form for incident, sets the value of the title, of the customer ID, of the customer satisfaction code, and saves. And as you can see, it's, as I see it, pretty simple. So if you have some form scripting experience with Dynamics 365, it will be really, really easy. So it's just the same objects that you pass in there as well. So of course, you pass a string or a text field as a text, and lookups are just as they are handled in the client API, an array of objects with an entity type, an ID, and a name. Option sets are set with their respective value, just as in regular form scripting. And this test, after it's done with saving, just checks whether the priority code is 2, which is middle in our case. Right, and for portals is the same. But for portals, the browser extension is not yet ready. So when you want to do UI testing in portals, you still have to do everything manually. So you have to write the code yourself. I think I might support portals in the future with the extension. I think it would really be a nice feature because it could help you in getting the selectors right. It's always some work to get the selectors working, and that could automate it for you. And we'll also take a deeper look at this in the hands-on section. So as I told you in the beginning, the library is able to execute in Azure DevOps so that you can automate your tests in there. And what you have to do basically is you have to create a repository for your UI tests inside DevOps. You can upload the whole project, so the whole demo project where you pasted your code or written your code, and upload it to the repository so that it's available for Azure to execute. And then there's a completely working pre-written pipeline definition available in the official documentation of D365-UI-Test. So you can just navigate to the documentation, go to the tutorials, move to the DevOps section, and you can just copy the whole YAML definition, just add your environment variables so that D365-UI-Test will know which organization to visit, which user and password to use, and so on. And then you will have a working pipeline which will execute every 2 hours on working days from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Or if you change your test, it will also run directly. So this is just the pipeline in the screenshot in here. And we will take a closer look at this as well in the hands-on lab. All right, so last slide before our hands-on. This is just a few screenshots to show you how you can debug when builds in Azure fail. So as I said, the browser extension takes care of making screenshots when your tests failed automatically. So if any errors occurred during the build, you can always take a look at the related section inside the build report, and then there's a small control where you can see that something was published. And when you click onto it, you will be presented with the content of what was published, and there's always an XML file, which is just the JUnit representation of the test suite. So what passed, what failed. And also, if any of the tests failed, you will receive a PNG file, so a screenshot with the name of the test that failed. And when you open it, you can just see what the browser saw when the test right at the moment when the test failed. So it's really helpful for debugging. And in addition to that, of course, you can go to the test section, go to the failed test, and it will also print out the error that occurred. So whether there was an internal failure, for example, or whether everything internally worked, but the result that you expected inside your test was not received. So in this example here at the right, the test failed. It expected the priority to be middle, which is the value 2, but it received 1, which is the value high. So this is the reason why this particular test in here failed. All right, so that's it with the theoretical part. And now we'll get started with our hands-on. Just open my browser. All right, and what I want to show you at first is just everything at GitHub site so that you know where to find everything. So this is the XAMPP open source software GitHub page where I host all repositories that I do. And you might also want to look at a few other projects in there. I think there might be some interesting projects for your organizations, and I think I will also be covering some of them in upcoming events. At least I hope to do so. All right, so when you start in here, you can see there's a link to D365-UI-Test. And when I open it, I will just be presented with its repository with some videos, sample files, and links. What you can see in here is that there's also a reference to the documentation. So I wrote extensive documentation. If you want to get started and write the code yourself, you can always check out the docs. We have tutorials available for pretty much everything that is covered right now. So we have, for example, a tutorial for handling attributes, what you have to take care of in general, and every function that is available is also covered in here. So how to get the requirement level, get the value, and so on. And there should even be an example, yeah, it is in here, of how every value that you can set looks like when you pass it. So just that you know what you have to pass for a specific type of field. And of course, every namespace in here, for example, the attribute namespace has its own documentation here with all methods and just some definitions, which parameters they accept, what they do, and sometimes also some remarks what you have to take care of. And the nice thing with TypeScript is that these comments are also visible inside your Visual Studio Code. So when you write the UI tests, most of the comments that you can find inside the documentation are also visible directly inside your code editor. All right, so this was the documentation. And when you want to get started with the demo repository, you can either click here for getting to the Jest demo, or click here for getting to the Mocha test demo. And then you just need to follow the instructions in there for getting started. So what we will do in the next minutes is to set everything up with the Jest demo. But first, I would just like to show you as well the repository with the designer extension, just so that you know where to find it as well. So it's also in this overview page, and then you find the links to the Edge store and to the Chrome store directly inside here. All right. So let's get started with the Jest demo, and I will set it up completely from scratch at my side. So we have to get the Git URL. I will set it up with Git. I will open the PowerShell in the folder where I want to store the repository.
This is Florian. What's Florian?
Sorry. Was it a question, or did you forget to mute yourself? I think it's muting. So I will just proceed. So I cloned the repository now. It's done. And now I can just change the directory with my PowerShell to it. And as I said at the beginning, what we have to do first is really to download all the dependencies that I need in order to be able to execute the test. So I just type npm-ci. And now everything will be set up automatically. So it will download the correct Chrome version, Firefox version, WebKit version, and additional packages that I just need for running it. So for example, the Jest test runner and so on. All right, so it's done. And now I can open Visual Studio Code in this folder. And as we can see, we have the full project available in here. And we have just a basic test inside here. So what it does is it launches Chrome, goes to your organization URL, opens it, logs you in, and opens the create form for an account, and then the test exits. So this is just the base test that you can find initially after checking out the repository. And the settings file, which you need on your client, is used for reading the credentials, the URL, and possibly, if you use it, the MFA token. So you really need to take care that you have a settings file one level above your test project. So for example, when I just cloned the demo project, I was inside the automation bootcamp folder. So what Git does automatically is that this project is stored in there as well. So inside here is my demo project, and inside the folder above, I need to have the settings.txt file, which contains the credentials. You won't need it in Azure because there we use the safe environment variables. But for being able to log in, of course, those tests need to know the credentials as well, which is why we have the text file. And it has a simple format. It just has the URL separated by a comma with the username separated, then password, and if you use it, the multi-factor token. And this is also documented inside here, inside the README of the demo project. So you can see that you are instructed to create a settings.txt file, and this is a sample how it looks like. So organization URL, comma, username, comma, your password. And if you use it, as I said, the MFA authentication, then of course, comma again, and the secret that you can gather from the MS authenticator. All right, so we have our demo project set up successfully. And what I already did in advance was to install the extension. You can just get it from the Chrome store, and after installing, make sure to pin it in here so that it's easier to access it, because it will hidden all the time otherwise. So the icon will move to the extension every time. Just pin it and it will stay there. And then we go to our organization. So this is my open source development organization. And what I want to do with you is to define just a simple UI test in here using the designer. So of course, you have to take care which app you choose. And for our test, what we will use is the Customer Service Hub default app, which I already opened. But of course, you know the navigation here. Okay, so for our demo, I want to create a case. So we go to the case entity list and click on new. And what the extension now does is, when we open the extension on the CRM page, it checks whether it's on a form. And if it is, then it will be able to grab the metadata from the form. So I just open it. And now the extension knows that there's a case entity and which properties the form has. And what we see at first is that there's an app ID field in here, which is empty at the start. And we have to insert the ID of the app that we want to test. So we want to test the Customer Service Hub. And as we can see in the URL, it's this app ID inside here. Of course, would be a little annoying to copy it. So what you can do is just we click the refresh icon. And when we do so, it grabs the UCI ID automatically and inserts it in here. And the tests know after that before doing any tests, the correct app has to be launched. And our best practice for now is to do one test definition for one app, because otherwise the whole metadata that we store gets way too complicated and way too much data. And of course, you still want to separate your tests a little. And I think at least the model-driven app in which you test should be really a good separator for separating your tests. All right, so what we do now is we add a test group. It's just named after its index initially. We can name it case tests now, for example. And now we are able to add a test inside here. And what it does now is that it asks us for which entity we want to write a test. And it knows the entities where we opened the extension on a form. So every entity where we opened the extension will be able to be tested in here. And what we can do in here now is that we select we want to create a test for the incident entity. And let's check one quick thing below here. Nice. Okay. So we can give a name to our test. So I'll just name it create test simple. Here I might add a Jira reference just for being able to track why I wrote the specific test. And then I have an initialization action available in here. And this is the action that is executed directly at the start of the test. And so what this does in here is it opens a new record. I could, on the first test, also choose to open an existing record, and then it would grab the ID from the current form, and on execution of the test, it would navigate to my existing record. All right, but we'll start with a new record, and what I want to show you first is the macro feature. So when I click on the drop down in here, I can select create test to start recording into there. Then the UI will switch to signal to me that recording is active. And now I can just type something in there. So I type UI test simple, select the subject, an origin. We can handle multi-line fields as well. So let's see, maybe in the second tab something as well. For example, we can select the case type, and yeah, that should really suffice now. And when we save now, right, we can open the extension. And as you can see, the extension really recorded everything that we did and pasted it into the test that we selected. So what it recorded now is that case title was set to UI-Test simple, the subject was filled, the customer lookup was filled, the origin was selected, and the nice feature, as I see it, is that we also see the label. So the label of the option that we selected, because we selected email as origin, and it's really a drop-down rendered in here, which provides us with all options that the option set knows. So we really grab an extensive set of metadata for easing for you to define the UI tests. And in here we have the multi-line description and the case type code, followed by the form save. So this is just a simple test for creating the case. And now, of course, we might have to add a test for asserting something. So for that, we can just click the add button again, select the incident entity again. And one thing that I might want to rewrite now is check. We want to write an escalation test. And if you take a closer look at the navigation dropdown, because this is not the first test in our suite, we have more options available in here. We can not only say we want to go to a new record or to an existing one, we can also say we want no operation. So that says we stay on the same record, we don't change anything at all. Or you could, of course, have some plugins, for example, which create data in the background. So for example, you might add data to subgrids, or you might reference some records in lookups inside your form, and you might want to test something in them as well. So for example, if you have a plugin which created a record which will be visible in a subgrid, you might want to check whether all the mappings were correct. And what you can do then is you can click open subgrid record, select a subgrid in there. It knows that we are still on the incident entity because it always looks at the metadata of the test before this one. So we can say, for example, if a device is created automatically, go to devices subgrid, open the record at position 0, and then we will navigate to the device in there and can test the mappings and so on in the device as well. So we can do some advanced stuff in here as well, but we will remain at no operation. And what we do now is we will just add a set value action in here, where we say we set is escalated to true. So you can define tests manually as well. I could have started the recording as well. And now we just want to make sure that the escalated on field is properly filled out. So what I can do now is I can add an assertion in here, select my escalated on, and this is how you define assertions. You can also define multiple controls in here. So if you want to assign, or if you want to assert the same state for a set of controls, you can choose all of them and assert that all of them are visible or read-only and so on. And you can also assert visibility of subgrids, tabs, and sections in here. So you can combine really everything in here to just have an expressive form of defining assertions. And what we want to test now in here is just to say the value should be not null. All right, so this is our simple test case in here. And just for completeness, we might want to add a test for account as well. So we can add a new test group, name it account, go to an account form, make a new one. here. Now we can select account as well because we have been on an account form when we opened the extension. We can say it, we can name it create account. Choose new record again, choose recording. Set the values that we want to see in here. All right. And save it. And of course, we now get a duplicate detection dialog because I did some testing in advance. But this is no issue for D365-UI-Test because, as I said, we take care of such dialogs on our own. And when we go to account, we have our test case again. I seem to have clicked inside this field and left it without entering something. All right, now we have it in here. And of course, we might want to clean up in there as well. So after we did our assertion, for example, we can now assert that address 1, street 2, and street 3, that all of them are visible and enabled. So this is our assertion. We might now want to clean up our data to not mess up the system. And for that, we can just add a delete action, and the UI test will then clean up its own data on its own. All right, so this is our basic test. And now we are done with our test suite. We can go to the import-export tab, copy everything, go to our Jest demo, and just paste the whole thing in here. So what we get now is we have still our basic setup, and now we have our case test. This is the name that I gave to the group. We have the create test simple, we have the it should escalate test, and we have our account group. And when we now go to the console, type npm test, then it will start our automated Chrome instance, log us in, even with multi-factor authentication since I enabled it for my user, and do the test that we configured. All right, so we're signed in. It did everything on its own. So first up, it will sign us in into our customer service hub app. But on every navigation, it checks for the UCI to really be stable and to have everything loaded. So navigation sometimes takes a little on such dashboards because, as we see, the assistant here at the right took some time. But it's just a safe approach for having a stable UI test experience to really wait for the UCI to settle. All right, so now we are inside our app. And once this dashboard is stable, it should go to the incident entity. You will fill out the form, one field by one. So in order of our test, of course, and after setting every field, it will wait for the UCI to become stable again, because there might be some scripts behind setting of the field, and we just want to give those scripts the time that they need for completing. All right, so our case was created now, and what the test does now is the second test sets this escalated flag, saves, and then it asserts that everything worked right. All right, so now we are at the account test. And now we get the duplicate detection dialog. It was handled automatically. We ignored it and saved our record. And now once the page is stable, the record will be cleared again. So the UI test clicked the delete button, and now we're done. But I think there might have been an issue with the escalated on field. I might have messed up anything in there, but it might be, of course I messed up because yeah, this is a good sample case. I defined inside the UI test that I want to set the is escalated to true, but I forgot to add the save event. And as this is escalated on field is filled by a plugin. Now the test failed because escalated on had no data, and I expected it to have data. So because of time, I will not run it again. But you see that that the test framework did what it was supposed to do, because as I left out the save event, the plugins did not execute, and data was not filled. And the nice thing is, we can now go to the reports folder, click on the it should escalate, and we see really the screenshot that was taken automatically for us and stored inside the reports folder for seeing what went wrong in here. So let's just say that I did this on purpose. Okay. I think that's it for testing inside Dynamics. For portals, of course, as I said, we have to write code on our own, and this is just plain UI testing until now. I hope to get the browser extension ready for portals as well, but for now you really have to go to the portal site, inspect the buttons that you want to click, create the CSS selectors yourself, and write a test. So to just give you some time to ask questions, maybe I will just copy some code that I write that I wrote before the session for creating tests with portals. So I create a file in here. Jest will execute every file which is named .spec.ts inside the spec folder. So when I want to add a new one, I can just copy paste it inside here, and Jest will be able to find it. And what my test in here does, it just opens the portal, waits for it to load, clicks on the portal request button for submitting a request, and it fills out the form and submits it, and it checks that we get a success notification that the submission completed successfully. And when I execute it now, spec. So this is how you can start a specific test. I don't want to run the whole test suite, so I just put 2 dashes in there, the path to the test that I want to execute, and then I will just run the single one just to save some time. So it will go to the page. It will click the button. It was really fast, but I think you might have seen it. It fills out the form, selects the lookup, presses submit. And now we saw our confirmation message and our tests were successful. All right, so as promised, I want to show you how to set it up in DevOps as well. I think I will be lacking the time to upload it, so I will just navigate to my DevOps and show you how you do it. So I go to my DevOps, here's my repository, and now I can push the code up there. So I just grab the URL. We can do it with our test repository, for example. So inside here, just say git, I paste it. Name it DevOps because there's also already a repository named named origin, and I can just say push it. And now our code is available in here. So our code is in here. We can go to the pipelines, create a new one, choose our code is on Azure DevOps, choose my repository, choose Node.js as template. Sorry, I have to speed up a little. Go to the documentation, go to the DevOps section, copy and paste the YAML from here. And now I just have to set up the variables, and for them to work properly, of course, I have to define them. So the names are just as in here: CM URL, username, user password, MFA secret. You just set them for the MFA secret, and for the password, be sure to check the keep this value secret button so that they are stored safely. And that's basically it inside here. you have to set MFA secret to an empty value, even if you don't use it, otherwise it will fail. So even if you don't use MFA secrets, just add a variable with no value, click OK, and that's fine like it is. And to just save some time, I will show you that I pre-configured the pipeline in here before our session. You can take a look at the definition in here. Right, and then here you can see the setup. So the username, the password, the secret, and the URL. So this is everything that you have to adjust after setting it up, and then you have a build pipeline which can execute completely. And if you don't forget to save on your escalation test, then all the tests will succeed in here. And you also get nice metrics. So when you go to analytics, you get test pass rates, pipeline pass rates, and so on. It's really a nice feature. All right, so that's it regarding DevOps. I will just move back to the slides. It's just one slide, so stay tuned. It's just a quick wrap up of what I hope to have shown you. So the learnings. So I hope to have shown you that UI testing is really useful, that you can really test pretty much everything with it. So form scripts, security roles, and even background logics, for example, plugins or workflows. I hope to have shown you that the tests are really easy to define, and that they assist you in adding actions, recording your macros, and adding assertions, and that it's also easy and really fast to set up in DevOps for automating it and for notifying your project team members once a build fails, just to be able to respond quickly when anything goes wrong. All right, so I'm through with my slides. We just have a few minutes left, but if you have any questions, please feel free to post them or to ask them directly with your audio.
Thank you once again, Florian. So first of all, I have to say, Florian, that a lot of the community are very excited by this, right? So first of all, a big applause from the community, because every time something new like this enters the community, like Whale with his deployment tools and Geordie with unit tests, and it seems as though you have launched this community effort with this UI framework. I think the first question, I think, is really why this over Easy Repro? I think that's going to be the first question that the community will have. What are your thoughts, Kron? What are your thoughts, Florian?
Yeah, so first up, thanks for the kind words. I tried to use Easy Repro. It worked, but I was not really happy with its stableness. So I tried to write a browser extension which recorded tests for Easy Repro at first, and the extension worked, of course, but the tests were flaky, and I found out that oftentimes you really have to add think times and so on, sometimes completely random, and I did not like the lookup handling because I did not really care for really simulating the user input one-to-one. So I wanted to make it simple, and I wanted to make it stable without having these think times. And some people that I worked with also complained that getting the driver versions correct was a pain because it did not work at the very start. And I think I had to do 2 or 3 tries on my own as well before everything was really working as it should. And I just thought I need something more stable. I want to write something more modern, and this is why I created D365-UI-Test and also provided it to everyone for free. So it's open source, everyone can use it, and I just hope that people will like it and will profit from it as well.
So there is a question, Florian. One of the attendees is asking, will you be able to use this with Dynamics CRM 2016 on-prem?
It supports on-prem, and it supports custom ADFS login pages as well. You have to configure the selectors for the username and the password field as well when launching D365-UI-Test, of course, because every organization has a different landing page, as I have seen in the past, but it supports it if you use UCI. So you, of course, you have to be on 8.2 at least for having a UCI. Refreshed UI was supported at the very beginning, but I chose to deprecate it because it's really a lot to maintain, and it seemed like too much work at the beginning. But we have to see if there's really much demand. I might want to reconsider, but as of now, we support UCI. So, as coming back to the question, 2016 is supported if you use UCI. Yes.
Okay, so I think an important question, Florian, and I think maybe only you know this answer to this one. It's to do with, well, when someone's going to adopt a community framework, an open source framework, the main question people will be asking is, well, how many projects has this been used for? You know, how many implementations are people using this currently for, so that they can get an idea of. And I know everything has a beginning, right? And I'm sure people will start using this now that they know about it. But what can you share about the breadth to which this is currently being used?
Yeah. So D365-UI-Test. So the library itself is, I think I started developing it 2 years ago, but it was more of a proof of concept at the beginning, and I went into full development mode a year ago. And since then, we had 2 projects which used it extensively for really doing elevated tests as well. So with executing of reports, downloading the files, and so on. So that worked really good. And a boost in usage has been seen since New Year, because New Year was when I released the Chrome extension, and this was what caused a lot of excitement at our company amongst the consultants, because now they were able to define UI tests on their own, and they were able to just install it, go to their projects, and to define the tests on their own. And I mean, you can now also give the extension to some technical advanced customers, and they can define acceptance criteria on their own using the extension. So that's really neat. And since the extension is available, so it's like not completely 2 months, we have used it in 5 or 6 projects at our site, and the consultants have been very happy using the extension. Of course, it's not yet complete, so some things still have to be added for actions to be selected in there, to be selected in there. But I'm working on it, and if you if you need a feature that is missing in the extension, feel free to reach out on GitHub or LinkedIn, and we can talk about it. And chances are good that I'll implement it.
Thank you, Florian. So we're just looking at the questions here. So there are a couple of questions. So there is a question asked by David. He's asking, can the portal code be used for any portal apart from Dynamics portals?
I don't know which portals apart from Dynamics portals are meant. So if you mean the Power Apps portals, I think it's roughly the same. So for those, of course. And if it's a completely third-party portal, of course you can still use the framework, because you have the plain playwright. You can do everything that you could do with plain playwright as well. But of course there would be no profit over using plain playwright. In maybe the only profit would then be to have the automated screenshots on failure, and to have everything in one place. So if you want to have all your tests in one repository, of course, then yeah, you can do it. You can add a spec file for your external or for your completely different portal to the demo project, and it will work, of course, yes.
And the final thing to mention to everyone on this call is that the reason why this tool has so much potential is because one of the challenges that we found from the feedback from the community is that the current challenges with Easy Repro, as Florian mentioned, and as many other testers, what you find is that someone, a tester who's hired for a project, or you have a team, a project team, and you have testers on that team, essentially they struggle with using whether it's Easy Repro or the Selenium framework, because they don't have the skills to really create those regression automated tests. And what you've built here, Florian, is essentially a tool that essentially testers who are not full-on developers can actually use to be able to build these regression tests. Do you have anything to add to that, Florian?
Of course, yeah. So that was my main goal when especially when writing the Chrome extension, to just make testing way more accessible. I wanted to be UI testing to be accessible to everyone and not just developers, especially because we developers tend to be a rare resource. So it's always good if you can load balance your UI tests to people who even know maybe how the customer works better than you do as developer. So that was one approach, and I hope that my what I said to Easy Repro was not too harsh for everyone. I appreciate the effort that Easy Repro was created, and in fact, I saw that CRM really added some functions to the Dynamics apps for being able to be tested in the Easy Repro, which I use as well. And so it's really great, and I benefited from Easy Repro existing because everything was set up for UI tests. For example, there's a function for waiting for the UCI to become stable. This was written for Easy Repro, and I'm using it at my site as well. So it's really great that it exists. And just to come back to the question, yeah, I hope that UI testing gets more accessible with the extension, and I hope that everyone will be able to use it. I really had the main focus of making everything as simple as possible, which is why we have the YAML pipeline definition, which you just have to copy and paste, the extension where you don't know to need any code for defining the tests, and the demo repository, which is completely set up where you just have to paste the code and you're ready to go. So I hope that everyone will find it easy to get into UI testing, and if not so, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or GitHub and to just message me directly, and I'm happy to help.
And the final question, Florian, is obviously there's a lot of interest in this. A lot of the community are really keen on what you've created here. And I think the main question is, when can we expect the portal extension to become available, and how can we actually contribute towards helping you make this improve the feature gaps for this tool? So that's the final question. Over to you, Florian.
Yeah, of course. So I think releasing the extension for portals is not that much work on my side, because of course I have to handle everything and to implement it. But I think the major step to fulfill will be to make Google release the app, because as of now the extension will work on all pages which are hosted on the Dynamics domain. So you have to define a domain filter for being able to register an app. And for being able to work on portals, I either have to define a portals URL as well, or I just have to say my extension runs on all websites. So I have to pass a wildcard so that the extension can run anywhere. And I hope that Google will not complicate the process, because an extension that runs on all pages is of course more dangerous in terms of Google security than an extension that runs only on one page. But Level Up extension is working on all pages as well. So I hope to have no big problems with this, and adjusting the code is, I think,
good luck
not a big thing.
Right. Well, good luck with that, Florian, and we're there to help support you. So feel free in any way that the community can support you in your efforts. Well done. A big applause from the community. We've got your full support. So if you guys, please feel free we've shared the link in the chat window for this tool. I know many of you will start using it straight away. I just want to say thank you again, Florian, for all your efforts, and feel free if there's any support you need from the community. It's a really, really great initiative you've done here.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for having me. And if you want to contribute, of course, I'm happy to accept pull requests on the official GitHub repository. Just adjust the code. We can talk about the adjustments, and I can merge your PR if everything is fine, and we can work on it together. I'm happy to found a community around this tool, and I'm happy for what's coming. Thanks.
Fantastic. So that was the awesome Florian, who's been working on this project for several years now.